So as we can see, having torsion field energy allows you to heal your DNA, and of course, since cancer is a problem of DNA, either in the nucleus or in the energy producing cells, subcells of your body, the mitochondria, defect in that causes cancer. As one can see with torsion fields, one can cure cancer, so one never gets cancer. One can become cancer, not resistant, but immune to cancer. And since MI5 and the British police have been trying to fry me with microwave weapons since, what, 1996, I should be dead or in a wheelchair, brain damaged from the massive amounts of microwave. We're not talking low level, we're talking more powerful than stuff you stick in a microwave oven. And the former flat I had in Brighton, I had to build a steel room to protect myself from Brighton police, Sussex police and MI5 trying to fry me at home, and then trying to fry me with hundreds, if not thousands, of microwave emplacement vans, weapons in flats, weapons in supermarkets. Yeah, it just went off the charts. That were trying to torture me to death with microwave weapons. And you can see why I survived, because with torsion field technology, you can protect yourself from EM radiation. And since now the West has become one giant psychotronic death camp, which Brzezinski explained would happen in his book back in the 70s. He was, I think, National Security Advisor to Jimmy Carter, a Russian-hating Pole. He stated that all enemies of the state would be killed by psychotronics in the West, and this was coming. And of course, they've got that because there are EM weapons every few meters in the West, especially in Europe, called 4G, 5G. So, as I say, any enemy of the state simply has got the nanotech tool barcode, Bluetooth code in them, and GCHQ, they can simply get all of the EM death rays, which we call 5G, 4G, and of course the Starlink satellites. That's why Elon Musk has been flying thousands of death ray carrying satellites over Natrang, because if one doesn't work, thousands must work. And of course, give me a couple more trillion for the program, and I can guarantee, because I'm a devout Satanist and the champion of Satan, we saw him in his armor, that I'll kill this Tim Refat and gain the accolade of the Rothschild Rockefeller royal family, who see me as a threat to them, when in fact I control them totally as the great dictator. So you can see why I've survived and are prospering under the immense bombardment in Natrang and the thermal levels of microwave back in the UK, because of course torsionics means that when they fire death rays at you to try and give you Havana syndrome or cook you alive, more likely in the UK, whatever damage they do to you is repaired by your phantom DNA, because remember, microwaves and the like, or the Starlink satellites, are damaging your DNA and permanently damaging it, so you get cancer and rapid aging and a whole host of other diseases. The phantom DNA can reboot your DNA back to template pristine levels, and the torsion fields protect you against death rays from Elon Musk and his Starlink satellites. Because remember, in Vietnam, we don't have death squads run by MI5 that go around killing hundreds of thousands of people using microwaves, and now the 4G, 5G network, which has simplified it immensely. In Vietnam, that doesn't exist because this is a communist country and they don't do those things. One has to go to a neo-Stalinist state like the UK, which I didn't believe it when the CIA guy came to see me way back in '97 and told me that the UK was the worst torture state in the West because they routinely killed tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of people a year using microwave weapons, and that's why the Northern Ireland doctors were getting once in a lifetime cancer epidemics in streetfuls of Catholics. Every house would have a once in a lifetime cancer sufferer from the microwave weapons coming from the police stations all around the Catholic estates. And this was all written up. I talked about it on my Rents radio show, and when I went on Irish radio, etc., etc. And it was in the Daily Mail Irish edition. So, you know, big news in Ireland. So we know that what enemies of the state like yours truly were being afflicted by in the past, and I warned about the dangers of microwave weapons in my article done in the Daily Mirror when I released my first book. But of course, now, which is a giggle, the only victim of these energy weapons are the entire Western population, who are being fried to death by 4G and 5G, and the Starlink satellites by the worst mass killer in psychotronic history, Elon Musk. So if you try and look up Leonics on YouTube, you won't find anything, because remember, they know nothing. So we have to go to leptons, which are electrons and neutrinos. And of course, why are they important? Well, because your power source, the mitochondria, use electron cascade to produce ATP, which is the power source for your cells. So if you interfere with the electron cascade using leptionics for 30 seconds, people get life dysfunction and are no longer alive. All they're fit for is a Taylor Swift coffin. Or, which I do on a regular basis, I upgrade my electron cascade by remote viewing from the Dirac Sea to increase my mitochondrial output. So I've got in my cells many more mitochondria than normal people, and of course every time I remotely view from the Dirac Sea from the 5-dimensional perspective, I tune my mitochondria and all electron transfer processes within my body to be super efficient to become a super soldier. So at the moment we're in Nha Trang, and it's quite sunny, but it's quite rough and very cold in the sea. So no one's swimming, they can't get through the shore break. There's some paddling, but the only one doing mile-long swims at the moment is yours truly. So with leptionics, you can swim in cold water and swim for miles and miles, as my cameraman would attest. I routinely in the summer go for 2 to 4 mile swims out to the fishing boats and back. Am I right, cameraman?
You must certainly.
I'm certain. No one else does that because they can't. They can't do that because they haven't mastered leptionics. So you might think, oh, this isn't any use. Well, look at my anti-aging videos which I think are on Rumble. On Rumble, can I remember? They're on Rumble, and you'll see that Leonics is vital to become a super soldier, superhuman, and of course to increase your longevity. So, if you're a billionaire, trillionaire, this is the technology that you want. And remember, since billionaires, trillionaires run every country on the planet, all of them would agree to technology that could be used to increase the lifespan, make them superhuman, and heal them. And of course, potentially allow consciousness transfer to a clone to give them immortality. So you can see why the scamdemic wasn't simply based in the West, it was worldwide, because all the world leaders, what do all the world leaders, and we're not talking about Starmer, the paedophile protector, or Macron, the Rothschild puppet, or Zelensky, give me more money so I can buy more Bugattis for the wife and more holiday homes on the Côte d'Azur and Miami. No, we're talking about the real leaders, Rothschild, Rockefellers, and the royal family, and their underlings, the billionaires like Elon Musk and the rest. All of them are desperate for this technology, and when the aliens offered them this technology in return for slaughtering most of the population and converting what was left into Borg, they willingly acceded. So when you're healing, you've got to know, as a doctor, what to do, what to use, what drugs to use. Now, of course, doctors can't increase your lifespan. In fact, lifespans are decreasing around the world. They're not increasing. In the 70s, 1 in 10 people used to die of cancer. Then it went up to 1 in 3. Now with the turbo cancers, it looks like anyone who's been Borgized will, and having the exosomes, will be dying of cancer. So it's gone up to 1 in 1 of the Borg. So obviously doctors have made things worse. 1 in 10 in 1970. Now 1 in 1 for the Borg, and that's why I think it was Pfizer invested 44 billion buying a small company that gave them 73% of the market share for chemotherapy. Now, if you're going to do healing, you need the stuff healing, which is Scalionics, Torsionics, and Leptionics. Now, unless you have the Refat equations and understand the mathematical physics behind it, this is all so much, what? Yeah, but you're irrelevant. The billionaires, trillionaires know that the aliens have the means to increase their lifespan. So the whole purpose of the scamdemic was to change the human into a Borg. Now, before we talked about Rykov artificial reincarnation.
Born on the 30th of July in 1926 in Leningrad. To say the least, her life was difficult during those turbulent years of the early Soviet rule, when the new regime was still trying to solidify its grip on the layer of glass and stopping Frog's heart with her eyes. This, being one of her last videos, could mean that her abilities and control over them has improved drastically over the years under the scientific surveillance. Admittedly, these videos were made during the height of the Cold War and could have been nothing but hoaxes to make the other side of the Iron Curtain believe that the USSR has tapped yet into another unexplored territory, with the space exploration being the previous one. Luckily, there is a brief scientific interview where she's asked about how is she able to manifest her abilities. And according to her, she needed a solitary time to prepare. The first step was deep relaxation and smooth rhythmic breathing, and finally, the concentrating her mind. I found this in particular very interesting, since I logically imagined that a high level of concentration was needed for such feats, not only in the paranormal area, but in any sport or professional process. However, it made me think of Systema, since in Systema they also say that the body and the mind are basically one and the same, and to achieve mental relaxation, we can start off by relaxing our body, and vice versa, by calming our mind, our body also enters into the relaxed and flexible state.
Which causes remote sensing, where you switch off the internal dialogue, and you're not half a second behind reality. How can you control reality if you're half a second, if you're tenth of a second or a couple of tenths of a second behind reality, as we've explained? And all the shamans talk about the road to psychic powers is shutting off the internal dialogue. Remote sensing, where you simply use the state of not thinking to do things. Where you go, well, how the hell does Tim Reefer do things when he's not thinking? Because you've got to think to do things. No, you get into the shamanic science of intention, which is talked about in The Power of Silence by Carlos Castaneda, where you intend for something to happen, you do the magical ritual to get it to happen, which is stalking. Stalking in shamanic stalking, not stalking A-listers. But I must admit, I psychically, I'm into that as well. That's another story. With remote sensing, you've got the paradox. Well, in order to get all the power and be a Tim Reefat that can control the world and do anything he damn well pleases, like blowing up Elon Musk's super expensive DoD death ray that's coming over the train, which we talked about in the last videos, which blew up. But you can't, if you think about doing it, you can't do it because when you think about doing something, you're behind observing it, because remember the brain is a tenth, 2/10, depending on how much nanotech you've got in your brain, behind what's actually happening. So all humans live in the past. How do you get into that state? Simple. You get into the tried and trusted methods of using a mind that has no internal dialogue. So I deliberately spend all of my time talking to the dead, because I've got the One Ring, and remember, the Lord of the Rings was called the Necromancer, so you can remotely view and talk to the dead, and spend the rest of my dialogue looking at my journal, because I'm 5-dimensional, so everything that I've experienced in the 5th dimension, all the wrong pathways, everything is written in my journal, which the shamans talk about in the active side of infinity that you must write your journal of your most profound and important shamanic activities. I've just taken into the fifth dimension, which means there's no space for my internal dialogue, because I'm either communing with my five-dimensional journal, because you can't commune with your five-dimensional self, because then of course you're going to find the bound period doubling and splitting yourself, so you're becoming chaotic. So you can't talk to your future self without chaoticizing yourself. And if you talk to yourself in more, goes to 4, and more goes to 8, goes to 16, and then if you try to talk to more, goes into the strange attractor, fractalized, and you end your five-dimensionality. So that's the rule. One cannot talk to your future self. Anyone that communes with their future self is communing with chaos. How do you get around it? Well, you simply have a journal where your five-dimensional self in all the multiverses and megaverses writes in a journal, and then you just make the journal able to be read like an audio book. So my dyslexic cameraman doesn't read The Power of Silence. He listens to it as an audio book. So similarly for me, though I'm not dyslexic, I simply have my journal of me as an audio book, and I can access any bit of it anytime I like, and that supplants my internal dialogue. So my internal dialogue simply vanishes because it's swamped out by talking to the dead and my journal. So everything I might do, you can look at all the different options, what's going to happen, and choose the path that's best for you. So you can heal yourself of the internal dialogue by getting rid of the internal dialogue. I don't simply wander around trying to switch off the internal dialogue. I can do. I can simply sit in the chair and switch off and become thoughtless. But remember, I come from a generation that had the boomers, a TV. So instead of switching off, why not replace it by watching a TV? When you watch a TV, are you talking to yourself? No. You're watching the TV. And of course, yours truly loves beering and watching his TV. So you're conditioned to switch off the internal dialogue as long as you're fixated on something else. So I fixate myself on my own five-dimensional audiobook journal. So I'm listening and getting images, if I want, of all the different pathways I might take and all the implications. And you can see now why I had to get rid of the Elohim, because the Elohim would block me accessing my five-dimensionality, because they're five-dimensional parasites and wanted to take over and suck me dry via things like Jeremiah Schwartz and his ilk. For this purpose. So in getting rid of the internal dialogue, you can see the super genius of Tim Refat. Instead of learning how to switch off your internal dialogue, which for people fixated on their mobile phones and computers, they've been so conditioned it is impossible. It didn't used to be in the past, but now with all of these zombies running around looking at their mobile phones, the chance of them switching off their internal dialogue and sitting in a chair and not thinking of anything is zero, and they'd find it pure torture. If they're not getting stimulated by their phone every few minutes, they go into manic or suicidal withdrawal symptoms. So you can see the mobile phone has permanently blocked the human race from switching off the internal dialogue and shamanic control over reality, which comes from thoughtlessness. And how you program it, well, you do a cult ritual to program the remote sensing mind, which you need to control reality. That's why you do a cult ritual, which I explained on my magic videos. That's why occultists do their rituals. The rituals are simply the vehicle to program their remote sensing to carry out the procedure. And of course get the energy, Leonics, Leonics, Torsionics, to do it. Now, if you're doing healing, you can only heal from this mindlessness state, which for all of you out there is impossible. But of course, since you become a vampire, you become me, and I can simply hack you at the quantum level. So it doesn't matter what you're thinking about. It doesn't matter what you're doing. It doesn't matter that you'll never be able to get into a remote sensing state, because you simply outsource it to me by becoming me. You get around the problem of all of you being inconsequential, useless eaters by outsourcing to the King Vampire, who is the great dictator and can simply control you. So you simply have to summon intent, parascience, which is programming your remote sensing state, which doesn't exist in you, but when you become a vampire it does, because you're part of me, therefore you have it. And that's all about summoning intent in the power of silence, and of course shamanic stalking, where you turn every activity in your life into a magical ritual. So you're constantly programming your mindful less mind, your remote sensing, to carry out the operation. And of course it carries out because it's been programmed by the shamanic occult ritual of you simply living. You turn everything you do into a magic ritual. You just stalking is simply treating all humans as things in your sacrificial space, and they're simply there for your giant worldwide occult rituals, which programs your remote sensing. So you can see my videos are gigantic summoning of intent, where I say what I'm going to do and then it happens, because I'm programming my remote sensing mind not by trying to do it, but doing it by the Black Brother method, by stating exactly on a video exactly what I'm going to do, then fire and forget, and then it happens. So it's very simple. You've got to make the weapon system to be fired, completely define it, launch it, and with Ivanova, remember you can not only put healing down a telephone line, but you can put anything else you want down a telephone line. So YouTube and Rumble and this whole milieu have revolutionized psychic warfare. Simply do a video, then it happens. Do the video, forget about it, and then come back to it. Oh, it's happened, that's good. As we saw with William Rothschild, and using him to burn down LA. So we see with Kulagina, who was moving stuff around, that she had to get into that state in order to control matter, because unless she was not thinking she couldn't move things around. Now, if you can telekinetically move things
In
around,
1920,
then you can also use telekinesis to control your body for healing. So here you can see we put in Rykov artificial reincarnation, but unlike last time, we put in Soviet psychic warfare, and we've got a Soviet psychiatrist has claimed that hypnotic phenomena can be utilised for what he claims to be artificial reincarnations. But what's important here is what are the leading results and what organisation is fixated on this technology. CIA. And of course, muddying the water, the failure of psychic warfare projects in military laboratories, the record shows, have often been among the most irresponsible experiments ever reported. Oh, that seems a bit unfair, but 2001, this is when the American psychic warfare went totally black, and anyone who talks about it gets whisked off to a secret prison. And again, CIA. Psychic warfare, exploring the mind frontier. Where we've got more viterative language. One-sided derogatory prose was filled with terms like futuristic fantasies, hogwash and warfare. So you can see that a thing called Rykov artificial reincarnation, you'd think nothing to do with CIA because psychic warfare doesn't exist, it's irrelevant. The CIA, of course, is into shooting people and torturing them, electrodes up every orifice in black sites. No, the CIA appear as the #1 result when we stick in Soviet psychic warfare. The CIA are fixated on psychic warfare, as we've explained, and first of all they explain about the Soviet psychiatrist who hypnotized people and got them to display characteristics and skills from dead people simply by the act of hypnotizing them into thinking they had that person in them, which of course is possession, and we've seen that possession has profound effects on people. And there are plenty of possession videos on YouTube. We showed one of those Catholic priests. Did we not, cameraman?
we did.
And then of course we've got, no, it's totally bogus because only us, the CIA, can do it, and we mustn't let anyone else even think it works, and it has to be the most irresponsible experiments ever reported. Oh my goodness. Why would you get this sort of language? The most irresponsible? Well, no, it's simply hypnotizing people and getting them to display an altar. And it's common knowledge that when you put someone in an altered state, their psychology and physiology can change. And people who've got diabetes, when they're put in an altar, don't have diabetes. You're simply creating a new body. This, of course, has profound implications, because if you can alter someone's consciousness and they get different physiological characteristics, and they had diabetes and now they don't have diabetes, this shows that you can heal people simply by artificially reincarnating into them a self that's young, fit, and super soldierish. So why, instead of artificially reincarnating into yourself some dead person, no, you can artificially reincarnate into yourself someone that doesn't have any physical defects or disease, which is you, doesn't age, and is a super soldier. Would that not be of interest to the CIA? They found that when they put people in the altered states, their physiology and diseases can disappear and they can become profoundly strong. Wouldn't they then want to, of course, make sure no one stumbled on this military implication? So here we've got the most irresponsible experiments ever reported. For, you know, how, you know, it doesn't exist. So why are you worrying about, you know, Rykov artificial, the most irresponsible experiments ever reported? So you can see by their own words, they show their massive interest in this technology.